Riding, 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 drop. Woo! Look at me, I'm doing it! Imagine you live in a city like Newcastle, or, for the purpose of this video, imagine that you actually live in Newcastle. When you're surrounded by miles of tarmac and concrete, what do you do to scratch that animalistic itch that builds deep down inside and compels you to roll your knobblies in the mud? Well, you stuff it in a bag, along with your pads and a change of clothes, and you drive it here. In this video, I'm going to be getting a taste of what Chopwell Wood has to offer. From the long-established Powerline, a trail that's 100% legit, waymarked and widely loved, through to its dark underbelly of often contentious off-piste trails. Before we get to that, this channel's all about mountain biking, so if you are too, please consider subscribing. If you do, please also click the bell icon and you'll be one of the first to know about new Meant for Descent videos when they're uploaded. This is the start of the Powerline. It's a 1.4 kilometre long red grade descent that comprises 3 bite-sized sections. The first begins at the southwest corner of the main car park and is essentially a short link constructed to keep riders safe and off the access road that it runs alongside. After 160 metres, the trail spits you out on the tarmac where the next section and the fun begins. From here, the trail starts to become a little more technical, and it's not long before gravity turns in your favour. The upper part of this section follows a series of sometimes tight berms that meander through a clearing beneath an overhead power line, hence the name of the trail. Maintain your speed over these 2 jumps, you can gap the rollers just out of this bend and carry that speed into the rest of the trail. Beyond the clearing, the trail takes on a more natural tone. By comparison, this area is quite sheltered and often takes a long time to dry out. Ahead, the trail briefly forks. Stay left for the red, or right for a more challenging alternative. This section ends with a short technical descent that is just as slippery when it's dry as it is when it's wet. To make it even more challenging, the fence at the bottom has been expertly positioned to cause life-changing injuries if you come in a little hot. The final section begins with some smooth flow that leads you over 3 small tabletops. Beyond those, the gradient shifts and you'll need to get on the cranks if you want to maintain pace. It doesn't take long, however, to turn the tables and win back momentum. At this point, the section's almost over, but the trail has one more surprise. If you ride straight over this berm, you can follow an alternate hidden line that rejoins the trail on the final bend. With the exception of Article 50, an unsurfaced natural black grade section that's accessed from the power line, that's it for official trails. However, they're far from the only trails in the forest. Chopwell Wood has long been the domain of sub-rosa trail builders, and illicit lines greatly outnumber the legitimate ones. From here on in, that's what we'll be exploring. It's at this point I should say that if you're riding in Chopwell Wood and you're not on the power line, you're on a shared trail. Because the forest's relatively small, and because it attracts a lot of visitors, you won't need to ride far to find people. People walking by themselves, walking with each other, walking small dogs, large dogs, and even huge wealthy dogs who arrive in their own cosy caravans. For the most part, everyone gets on just fine, and I absolutely love that about Chopwell. So if you're going to stray from the established routes, please take care and think about the people who are around you when you do. Anyway, public service announcement over, let's get on with it. This is routes. That might be how you introduce your wife or girlfriend after a particularly long spell between hair salon appointments, but it's also indicative of the terrain here. Before you hit the starting gate, you get a pretty good downhill run up, and it's easy to carry speed through the first section. That pace will probably be short-lived though, because waiting ahead is a broad boggy mire. I prefer to stay way out to the right and swing left to avoid it, but half the fun of riding this section is trying to pin down the best line. Beyond the bog, you really need to pedal hard to get some speed back, and by this point the ground's levelled out, so that's easier said than done. When you're rolling again, it's back to trying to judge the best path to take between the trees and over the remaining routes. The old downhill line is one of the longest natural trails in the wood. It's in 4 sections and crosses 3 popular paths. Because of this, it's likely you'll meet people on foot, either on the paths or on the trail itself, so it's best to take care. It's not very steep, but the whole of the trail follows a moderate, sustained gradient, and it's not until you walk along it that you really appreciate it. When you're riding, it barely registers, but it means you can relax and cruise along, or put a bit of effort in for a little more excitement. The first section is brief, only lasting around 20 seconds. The second section is longer, more technical and more fun. There hasn't been very much rainfall over the last few days, but parts of the trail are still muddy, and in the winter it gets an awful lot worse. Entering the third section, the ground is hard and fast, but a little way down the trail, beneath the stand of beech trees, it's often soft and muddy. To hold your speed, you'll need to hop a muddy depression that spans the trail, then swing right to avoid the worst of the soft ground. Right now, I'm about to arrive at the drift pit, an area with a number of drops and jumps. My guess is that most people who pass through here will want to hang around and session them for a while, and it's definitely worth it. This is quite a fun place to be. This section is called Sandy Burbs, and unfortunately you won't be able to enjoy it. When I was editing this video, I found out that the trail had been cleared by the landowner, so this is the first and last time I was able to ride it, which is a real shame. Someone had gone to a lot of effort here, and I wanted to include this footage because it helps to highlight the transient nature of trails like these. This trail is called Alternator, and it's in an area known as the Steeps. It's cut into an abrupt hillside that provides this section with a real sense of exposure. As it traverses the slope, it often passes perilously close to the trees on either side, meaning there's often very little room for your bars. If you get a bit over-enthusiastic, clip a tree and leave the trail, you're going to tumble a long way before you stop. Occasionally, Alternator can feel quite tense, but it's also what youngsters might refer to as mega ace funsies. Last on the list today is a trail called the Middles. Well, it's one of several trails collectively known as the Middles. This line is a mixed bag. It's sometimes tight and technical, but it still offers good flow. You can manage a good bit of speed, and you can throw your bike into a lot of the corners too. Like Alternator, in parts the trees are close enough to feel as though you're going to clip them on the way past, but that just adds to the character of the trail. Today the conditions are dry, the trail is firm and fast, and of the trails I've ridden in this video, I think I've enjoyed this one the most. It's just a great section, and it's worth doing it again and again. Exploring all of these trails has been a blast, and Chopwell Wood has a lot more to offer. If you'd like to see more trails, or if you know any of these trails by different names, let me and everybody else know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you do, don't forget to click the bell icon so you can be one of the first to know about new meant for descent videos when they're released. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up too. It's a big help. For now though, thanks for watching and I hope to see you again.